The Pittsburgh Steelers were eliminated in the wild card round by the Cleveland Browns, and while a wild card round elimination for some teams is not the end of the world, it sure looks like that for the Pittsburgh Steelers. In today's video, we're going to discuss the rise over the last few years, the downfall, and why they are in serious trouble moving forward as a franchise. This goes a lot further than just starting out 11-0 and TikToks and spotting the Browns 28 points in the playoffs. Now, before we get started, please like the video and subscribe to the channel, as all support is very much appreciated and each only take a second to do. Now let's begin. And we begin today's video by discussing the most important position in football and who will play that for them going forward. Big Ben played every game in 2020 with the exception of Week 17 due to the team resting their starters, or a few at that. He threw for 33 touchdowns to 10 interceptions and nearly threw for 4,000 yards. While those stats sound pretty good by themselves, there is always context with these numbers. In the first 11 games of the year, when the Steelers were 11-0, Ben threw for 25 touchdowns to just 6 interceptions, which would have put him on pace for an incredible 36-9 TD to INT ratio for a full 16-game season, and more importantly for the Steelers and their fans, 16 wins. Now, I think it's fair to say, everyone, Steelers fans included, knew the streak was going to come to an end at a point. It had to. And I'm sure there's tweets out there saying 19-0 and everything of that nature, but what I'm saying is realistic Steeler fans knew the streak would end, whether it was in Buffalo or in Cleveland or wherever. Anyways, after starting 11-0, they dropped 3 straight, and in those games Ben threw for just 5 touchdowns to 4 interceptions, which would have put him on pace for a 27 TD to 21 INT season, which obviously is not good. And had that been Ben's stats, he would have led the league in interceptions by 6. Ben then got back on track and led a comeback win against the Colts, and as we said, rested in Week 17 when the team played in Cleveland. But will Ben be back is a legitimate question as I make this video. Will he be back in 2021, or was the image of him and Marquise Pouncey together on the bench at the end of the playoff loss both of their final images as members of the Steelers? If it is, then we have to discuss Ben's contract situation going forward and how that would ultimately affect Pittsburgh. So no matter what, if Ben retires, they are at minimum on the hook for $22.25 million. And if Ben does decide to play, that jumps to over $41 million for the 2021 season. With how Ben played over the last few weeks of the year, it is fair to say that even if he comes back, the Steelers, and barring something spectacular here, will not win the Super Bowl if he chooses to come back. Would it be great for them to give Ben a final ride and have him be a 3-time champion with rings coming 13 years apart and for him to really ride into the sunset on? Yes, it would be. But with teams on the rise like the Bills and them really going up at that, and the Chiefs being the Chiefs of course, Pittsburgh will not be able to compete with them in the playoffs with everything on the line. And if you're a Steelers fan and are upset by me saying that, I mean, they just lost to the Browns in their stadium by double digits, so it would give you the confidence of beating a Buffalo or KC in the playoffs. Anyways, because of Ben's contract, this does severely limit what Pittsburgh can do this offseason, and because players generally sign 3 or 4 year deals, this severely limits them what they can do moving forward. But taking a look at the Steelers free agents this offseason, and there is a bunch, highlighted by running back James Conner, and of course the now seemingly controversial wide receiver Juju Smith-Schuster. Now Juju has said he would love to be back in Pittsburgh, and while he probably does mean that, the question is how much of a discount would he be willing to take to stay in the Steel City. Juju, and whether you like him or not, will receive a relatively large payday in a few months. He is just 24 years old and has 2 95-catch seasons to his name. And not only that, but in what could possibly be his last game as a Steeler, he finished with 13 catches for 157 yards and a touchdown and did everything he could help to muster a comeback. So with that being said, with the financial restrictions they have, I don't expect Juju to be back in the Steel City next year. But what must be said, and I try to play devil's advocate with this, but what must be said is Juju has posted on his Instagram stories and Twitter multiple times that he wants to come back. And the reason he may come back, and I'm saying may, not that he will, but he may take a pay cut because of how much of a following he has on social media and how much he earns outside of football. Time will tell with this, but that is certainly a possibility. Now, what will happen this offseason is the Steelers will sign star defensive player TJ Watt to a contract extension. And I think if there's anything everyone watching or commenting can agree on, it's that TJ deserves that extension and he will soon be handsomely paid. But with the extension of one of the best pass rushers in football, will leave less cap room for extending players like Juju or James Conner long term. They also have a few offensive tackles that will be free agents in Al Villanueva and Zach Banner, who tore his ACL in the season opener. Another few players that will be free agents are corner Mike Hilton, edge rusher Bud Dupree, and defensive lineman Tyson Alualu. With Ben's cap situation limiting what they can do, and NFL teams never having enough pass rushers, I don't expect Dupree to stay, as they never worked out a long-term deal and he was playing on the franchise tag as it was. He was on pace for back-to-back double-digit sack seasons, and a lot of the times when players play in franchise tags, they take it personally because they take it as the team saying that they don't trust them long-term, and I'm not saying Bud is like that because I really can't sit here and say what he's thinking, but with what would have been back-to-back 10-sack seasons and a chance to get the bag and set his family up with financial success for the rest of their lives, I do expect Bud Dupree to leave the city of Pittsburgh. Now, why Pittsburgh is in bad shape moving forward does not just boil down to Ben Roethlisberger's contract. I want to get that clear. Their offensive line is not good, as they finished 32nd in rushing yards in 2020 and were also dead last in yards per carry. They could not run the ball at all, and what's surprising is how they managed to be 11-0 in the first place. But going forward, who will they have on their offensive line and who will be their starting running back? Young backs in Benny Snell and Anthony McFarland averaged less than 3.5 yards per carry, which simply put is bad. There has been speculation that someone like Aaron Jones, who is a free agent, would go to Pittsburgh, but again, that's all it is. Speculation. And for what it's worth, I would expect the Steelers to pay their hometown guy in James Conner before Aaron Jones, not because he's better, because he's not, but because he is the hometown guy. And before anyone says, oh, that's terrible, Jones is way better, which he is better than James Conner, the big thing it would boil down to is money, and the Steelers do not have a lot of it to spend. But what's most important for Snell, McFarland, Conner, or any back that will be taking carries in 2021 is who will be blocking for them. There is a very real possibility center Marquise Pouncey retires and they lose Al Villanueva in free agency. So that would leave more holes on the O-line with a 39-year-old quarterback, assuming Ben starts next year, who is not mobile to say the least. The Steelers' offensive line troubles will continue in 2021, and this is a large reason they'll struggle, whether Ben returns, Mason Rudolph starts, or someone else not named in the video starts at quarterback for them. But what's good for them going forward, and I don't want to make this a thing where they will only struggle because they do have some great players on their roster, but they will have, assuming everyone stays healthy at least, a great defense and great players to build around for the next few years. TJ Watt will soon get paid, Devin Bush will be just 23 years old at the start of next season, and of course all-world safety, Minkah Fitzpatrick, will be just 24 and not turn 25 until late November. Now, this defense is as good as they want it to be, as they also have key contributors like young defensive end Alex Highsmith, and if they retain him, linebacker Robert Spillane. They gave up the third fewest points in the NFL in 2020, and they do have a good defense moving forward. They're not a team that has just a good secondary or a good pass rush, but a defense that has great players on all three levels. There's no reason that Devin Bush, when healthy, can be a first-team All-Pro, and as we've seen from TJ and Minkah the past few years, they can be first-team All-Pros, and they are franchise cornerstones. The big concern I have with them moving forward is the quarterback position, the running back position, and the offensive line. Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, and Juju are all solid receivers and have all produced in the same offense at once. But with the Steelers hooked on Ben for another year at minimum, what will they do going forward? And how will they attack this in the draft is a serious question that I don't think they have the answer to right now. They have the 24th pick and will not be able to take one of the top quarterbacks in the draft with that late of a selection. And it is worth noting that Deshaun Watson will not be a Steeler, not because he doesn't want to or anything like that, it's that the Steelers will not have the assets to acquire him. And to be clear, they could give up enough to get him, but that would create more problems because surely the Texans would want at least TJ in a first or TJ Minkah in a first because we never see quarterbacks of his caliber available for a trade, and it would cost 2 arms and 2 legs to acquire him, and I think we will soon see that for whatever team that trades for him. But the future of the Steelers hold can be described as uncertain at best because of how the other teams in the conference are. Pittsburgh is no powerhouse with a 39-year-old quarterback with no offensive line and almost zero run game. They have no backup quarterback or QB in waiting either, which makes things extremely difficult going forward. And their defense is too good for Mike Tomlin to just say, okay fellas, at the end of the day we want to lose to acquire whoever, because that won't happen and Steeler Nation would not let it happen either. And with uncertainty surrounding more than half of the offense and with a great defense, the Steelers in the next few years are going to be stuck in the worst position a franchise can be in unless they get it figured out, and that is mediocrity. Mike Tomlin is a great head coach and has never had a losing record as a head coach, and while I don't expect that to change, I certainly don't expect him to get his second Super Bowl title either. And with that being said, that's all I have for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did and are still watching, then I want to let you know I appreciate the time out of your day. Please like the video and subscribe. It helps a ton and only takes a second to do. I will see you guys next time. Love you guys. Deuces. Peace.